There is a moment in every person's life when they realize this isn't it. For most, that moment just passes. For few others, it becomes the moment that changes everything. My guest today is Tannya Jajal. On paper, she had it all: a career in cybersecurity at VMware, a powerful seat inside the global tech, and the kind of corporate life most people chase. She didn't build Aiden because it was a cool startup idea. She built it because staying silent started to feel like betrayal. What did you discover on the other side?
The first thing I discovered is that it's very difficult, and that sometimes a monthly salary and the benefits of working in a big company can really feel like golden handcuffs that are also so comforting. I've come to experience a fulfillment and a sense of purpose, but also a sense of motivation that I had never experienced previously. Fundamentally, the way that knowledge is created because of AI and consumed is radically different than it has ever been.
Yeah. And I believe that co-creating education with teachers, students, and parents is the future. What are the top 3 skills that will help them stand out from the crowd, especially when AI and humans are working together now? AI is a disruptor, enabler, or mirror?
Disruptor.
If you don't adapt, you die.
Exactly.
This isn't just a conversation about AI. It is about courage. The kind that changes your life and one day changes the world. There is a moment in every person's life when they realize this isn't it. For most, that moment just passes. For few others, it becomes the moment that changes everything. My guest today is Tannya Jajal. On paper, she had it all: a career in cybersecurity at VMware, a powerful seat inside the global tech, and the kind of corporate life most people chase. But something inside her felt deeply out of alignment. She began asking questions about work, education, and future of humanity alongside intelligent machines. She left it all to build Aiden, a UAE-based startup reimagining how we learn in the age of AI, partnering with global companies like HP, Amazon, and Spotify to build real-world, human-centered learning experiences. But even before she founded Aiden, Tannya had already started shaping the conversation through her book, Thinking Machines: AI and the Intelligence Explosion, which is a powerful collection of essays exploring how AI is changing what it means to live, learn, and lead. Today, she is not just building a product, she is building a movement, one that challenges how we define intelligence, success, and potential in a post AI world. In this conversation, we go deep into what no one tells you about following your purpose, how AI will redefine our education system, and the parts of entrepreneurship that rarely make it to Instagram. This isn't just a conversation about AI, it is about courage, the kind that changes your life and one day changes the world. Welcome, Tannya, to this episode of Lead2Impact. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It is an honor to be here. I came here against all odds. So
yeah, thank you so much for doing it. So first, I would like to start with a question that has been on my mind for a long time, from the time I met you, actually. So you had been working with a global brand.
Yeah.
And you had all the success, you had the recognition, which everyone is actually chasing in the professional world.
Yep.
I would like to ask you, what did you discover on the other side when you left all of it? And then you literally went to the other side, to the entrepreneurship side, right? Yes. What did you discover over there?
It's a very interesting, that's a great question, because it's been a very interesting journey. I would say, I think it's really important to not sugarcoat the experience. I would say that I often think about this poem by Charles Bukowski, actually. And the poem says, it's basically this long monologue where he writes about how if it doesn't come bursting out of you, don't do it. If you feel like you need to go and ask your father, your brother, or your sister, or your partner for validation, don't do it. But if it's something that you really need to do and it's bursting out of you with that urgency where you feel this is something you have to do, then you should do it. It's this incredible poem. I would recommend it to listeners. And I think that I often think about that poem when I think about the moment that I decided to leave big tech and leave VMware to pursue what I really wanted to do. Once I did it, the first thing I discovered is that it's very difficult, and that sometimes a monthly salary and the benefits of working in a big company can really feel like golden handcuffs that are also so comforting, right? And then you suddenly have to let go of. But then as I pursued on with the journey, and it's been about 18 months now, a bit more, I've come to experience a fulfillment and a sense of purpose, but also a sense of motivation that I had never experienced previously in the professional world.
So what I hear you say is that when your heart says to go ahead and do it, just do it, and you will discover yourself in that process as well.
I think that's true. And I also think that if you feel that there's a problem that you really want to solve and you've identified, it doesn't have to be that you've identified the solution as clearly as people say you might need to prior to stepping into entrepreneurship. But if you feel that there's a problem that in the world or in your society that you want to help solve, then I think that following that instinct can sometimes be very beneficial. But it does take a lot of courage and a lot of thick skin to really push through it. Yeah.
And that brings me to the next question. So when you started Aiden, it would have looked all perfect on paper.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's what happens when
Yes.
when you're starting out something. It looks perfect on the paper, but the behind the scenes is completely different. Can you explain a bit?
Absolutely. So up until I'd started a company, the company is called Aiden, as you just said, I probably had never experienced sleepless nights because of a sense of, whoa, what is the next day going to look like, right? So I didn't really, I'm not really a high anxious person. So it's not something that I had anticipated or expected to experience. Neither was it something that I had experienced. So I didn't know what that would feel like. So probably one of the first things that really took me by surprise was the sense of, okay, now you're out on your own and you have the company, you did all the administrative work. Now you actually have to get going and get the company out there. And I think it helped that I had a personal brand, but I have to say that running a business versus having a personal brand are two very different
things. Yes.
different things. And so I had to learn a lot. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night having the sense of uncertainty or ambiguity of what the next day would look like, and really having to learn to tap into my intrinsic motivation to get things moving.
So you discussed about personal brand, right?
Yeah.
I'm curious to know, did your personal brand help you in your business?
It absolutely did, because I think for any person who's running a business or wants to run a business, I believe that selling is an absolute necessity, right? So you need to have a great service or product or whatever it is. But if you want to be the founder, CEO of a startup or an entity, you have to be willing to talk to people. And when I say selling, I mean, building relationships with people, seeing where it could take you down the road, putting your service out there, asking for help, like picking up the phone and asking for help. You're probably one of the people I asked, actually. So
I'm glad I'm glad that you asked for help, and I'm glad I could help you to some extent.
You did, absolutely, because of your position, it helped me create a partnership with Oracle as well. And today we continue to have these conversations. It's also about it built my network in that space as well. So I think that that's really powerful, and you have to be willing to do that. So that was something that it took me probably 2 to 3 months of training wheels to really realize that this is very important. But picking up the phone initially, certainly it helped that I already had the personal brand, because there were a lot of people throughout the years that I had met that I could pick up the phone and ask for help from.
Yeah, so you built a network much before you actually needed it, right?
Exactly.
And then you just leveraged it. And
Exactly.
and this is what we see with a lot of CEOs today, even the multi-billion-dollar businesses, the CEOs much better than their businesses, right?
Exactly.
Sam Altman, Bill Gates.
Exactly.
So personal branding is non-negotiable if you want to get into business,
Absolutely.
into entrepreneurship.
And powerful networks, which of course goes hand in hand with personal branding, right? Yeah.
So let's talk about fear as an entrepreneur, right? Not the loudest kind, which we all are aware of, but that fear which creeps into you at times. Can you explain to me a little bit of that fear which you had in you when you started your entrepreneurial journey?
Absolutely. I think the fear, for me, the main thing was, what if I don't have it in me to go all the way, right? So it was less about, I was kind of prepared for failure, because I think anyone who wants to get into entrepreneurship, you kind of have to tell yourself, and there's a lot of people out there who will advise you that you're going to fail on a daily basis, right? Meaning that not every call is going to go well. Not every business decision is going to go great. You might have to liquidate your company. Like, you have to be prepared for the fact that you might have to ask people for help, financial support, might have to move into your mom's house, you know? I remember telling my mom, hey, I'm doing this, but I might be there, you know, in your house.
Did you have
no,
to?
Unfortunately, I didn't have to.
18 months down the lane,
I'm still fine. I definitely don't have to.
That could be one success.
Exactly. Exactly. That feels, you know, I'm happy that that's something, you know, I didn't have to do. But also grateful to have the support network to make it happen. So I think it's important to get other people on board with what you want to do. But that fear that I had was, you know, what if I don't have the discipline to see this through? Meaning wake up every day and keep going, and get my team to stay, or whoever comes and joins me on the journey, to stay motivated as well. And that fear, I would say, it hasn't completely been obliterated. Yes, because you still have to keep going, even when personal life is not going great or other circumstances don't necessarily add up. You still have to pull through and get the team to pull through as well.
Yeah, as a leader, you have to still be available. You have to still be present. Exactly. So how do you do it? I
read a lot about Stoicism. So Stoicism is a philosophy that, you know, the ancient Greeks really embodied, and there are some great emperors and Roman emperors also embodied Stoicism. And essentially what it says is that it's a way of living life and a way of specifically tackling challenges and obstacles. So I read a lot of Stoicism to remind myself of how to respond or show up in really challenging situations. The fact that someone just hit my car on the way here was a good practice of that. So it doesn't have to be a huge problem, but it can be even, you know, minor daily issues. And I do try to meditate. But for me, I would say a lot of the ways in which I process these things is through running, because I love ultra running. And it's a way for me to kind of get my mind more adept to all of the challenges that occur on a daily basis.
So you mentioned about running. You mentioned about Stoicism. It's something which I would love to learn more about, because that's a new concept. Is it similar to Zen?
I would say it is similar to Zen in some ways, but it's while Zen comes from Eastern philosophy, Stoicism primarily came from the Western part of the world, which is interesting. But actually at its core, there are some similarities, except it doesn't have some of the beautiful Eastern mysticism that, you know, that I also really appreciate from Zen and Buddhism. Yeah.
Great. So when you built Aiden, which is an AI education platform, what was the thought process behind it? And also, because I am a mother of twin baby boys, I'm really thinking like how AI will change our future, like our children's future in the next few years, and how should AI, the education system, should be redesigned so that they can succeed in the future, which we actually don't know how it'll look like in next 20 years, right? Exactly. What's the world they are actually getting into? So how do you think we should be redesigning the education system, and what's your why behind starting Aiden?
That's a great question. First of all, I didn't know you had twin boys. I think that's really that's awesome. That twins are really incredible. Second, I would say, so for most of human history, the way that education was designed, it was designed to fit an industrial era model, right? So back in the day, we used to have factories, and we needed factory workers to be very, very efficient at producing things within factory settings, right? Or environments. And if you think about how a modern classroom, even today, runs, you've got a bell, right, in between each class. And that's literally meant to mimic factories, right? Where you had bells to say, okay, this task is done now, on to the next one. And most of what happens in education is that you're taught subjects in silos, which made sense at some point in time because, you know, some kids needed to go and learn math, Some kids needed to learn English. Some had to get better at different vocational training, like getting into, if they wanted to become a chef, for example, you needed cooks and so on. And some of that, I would say about 5 to 10% of that continues to be true today. But fundamentally, the way the knowledge is created because of AI and consumed is radically different than it has ever been. And so we need to break away from this model where you have bells, rote memorization, exams, and subjects taught in silos to more interdisciplinary learning models, where students and young people learn how to tackle challenges and problems in the world, and then learn how to leverage all of the tools that they have available to make that happen, right? And now that's becoming more important than ever, because the young ones who don't do that and who don't become, let's say, super users of AI or critical users of AI, they're going to get left behind, right? They won't get employed.
Yes.
And we see that in tech. We
Yeah,
can
true.
experience that,
Yes,
where
we are
if you
seeing
don't
it.
have personal brand, adaptability, a public influence, right? If you don't have these skills that really make you stand out, then you are at risk as an individual. And so I think it's very important to go back to the drawing table and redesign education with that in mind. And if that's how education would be, we'd probably all enjoy it a lot more.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is that it's not about discipline in education anymore. To some extent, it is all about how you are able to see a 360-degree holistic point of view,
Exactly.
where you can kind of interconnect and understand how you can solve problems, definitely using AI, because that's the biggest technology these days. You have to use it. At the same time, there is a lot of concerns about how AI will impact our children, and how AI will negatively impact their creativity, their the way they educate themselves, etc. So what's your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I think there's certainly a lot of risks with AI, and I often dwell on some of the apps that young people use today, or that even people like myself use, and I'm not sure about the absolute utility of some of these apps, like social media apps like Instagram and TikTok. They serve some purpose for businesses, but I'm really not sure if the benefits in any sense outweigh the risks and the negative impact that they have. So the way that I see it with AI specifically is AI is, ironically, we call it a GPT, which is a general purpose technology. Like electricity or the steam engine, it's going to infiltrate every aspect of jobs, industries, and our lives. And it'll probably do so sometimes in subtle ways, right? It might not be extremely obvious the way that it's being adopted. So even for people who might be concerned about it being overhyped, they have to, maybe acknowledge and consider the fact that it's slowly seeping into everything. And so if AI touches every pore of education, then what needs to happen is that we have to teach young people how to have a balanced relationship with it. And if you don't do it in schools, then for sure they're going to use it wrong. That's the philosophy. So that's why Aiden does what it does, because we realize that we don't know exactly what the best use of it is. I don't even think Sam Altman and OpenAI could possibly know that. But what we do know is that if we don't expose them and give them that critical thinking skill set and teach them moderation, then for sure they're at even more risk.
So probably I should teach my children how to use AI in a very controlled environment. And also, I heard that UAE and US also is investing a lot in educating children how to use AI properly, right? So that could be the next steps, because no one knows how it should be done, and we are all experimenting. But these are good steps, I believe.
Definitely. That's a great, I think families actually can do a lot together with their kids, especially whether they're young kids. If they're really young, you probably don't want them to do single, child to device constantly, but you as the parent or as the guardian can certainly co-create an experience in which the child is expanding their own creativity. For example, by using AI art tools, right? Because I think we need to learn some lessons from the social media mistakes, which is if you ban young people from using things, then it actually has a counter effect. But this is different because AI can also be very empowering. It can allow us to learn about ourselves, right? It can be used as an extension of our brains and our neocortices, if that's what we want. And so I think there's a lot of fun and playful activities that families can engage in, but I think it's also important for young people to see older people in their lives as the super users so that they can learn from them. Because if you show up as a teacher or parent and you don't know much about AI and your child feels that they know better as they're growing up, then they're going to say they're not going to want to listen to you, right? They're going to default to AI as the authority figure or authority voice. But if you come in and bring that educational or fun or creative aspect to your experience with your child, then they're going to default to you. And that's ideally what we want. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you this because as parents, because I'm thinking from my perspective, right? As parents, even though I'm in the technology field, I'm in the cloud and AI field, probably I don't know how to teach my children how to do that in a controlled environment. Is Aiden helping parents to do that?
Yeah, we actually just introduced a parent-student workshop literacy series where we've designed some really, along with some teachers that we know in the network of UE teachers, essentially, who are really leading edge on that and who spend a lot of time with students or with young people themselves. We've introduced these workshop series where we essentially put children with their parents in the same setting, and we teach them the same thing, and then they conduct some activities together. So this creates a very exciting learning experience. We're actually just launching it this October. So, I'll let you know how it goes.
Of course.
But
my children are just 3.5. I don't know whether they're still they're too young. So, but definitely I'll be looking forward for something like that because it's important that as parents we understand how to use technology in the right way for our children. And
100%.
Thank you so much. That it's great to know that Aiden is doing something, and it's quite different from what we generally do, right? Because we don't focus as entrepreneurs or in general as technologists. We don't focus on the community aspect of using AI. And I'm very grateful that Aiden is doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the philosophies that we take into each school that we partner with as well. So we don't actually say we're only going to work with your teachers and only going to work with your students. We actually have parent engagement embedded into the tier with which the school works with us. So if they buy the curriculum or the platform, they get certain parent engagement touch points because we think co-parenting and co-educating from a parent and school perspective here is extremely important, and we shouldn't underestimate the risks that AI will bring.
Yes.
Which is why it has to be a conjoined effort between teacher, parent, and whoever the startup or provider or external curriculum provider, in this case us.
That's incredible. That's incredible, right? Because I don't know if anybody have even thought about something like that, bringing teachers, parents, and children together to co-create a space to use AI responsibly.
I don't think they've done it in the context of AI. Maybe there are a few people in the United States, but I do know that I was inspired by this model of schools called Hyde schools that exists in Maine and in Chicago, where they really bring in parents into the educational process of the child, which is something that often gets neglected because as parents, we put children in the schooling system and then hands off.
Yeah, and then we are there just for the PTA meetings.
Exactly.
And just
which is normal because parents get busy as well,
exactly,
right?
Exactly.
But I think that maybe if we flip that, then the overall benefits to society might be greater than we imagine.
Yes, I'm sure. Once we start flipping that and once we start co-creating education together, that is going to be phenomenal.
Exactly. Yeah. That's how it should be.
Great. So if I ask you, what could be top 3 skills, even again for my children, I come from that point with respect to AI, and also the professionals who are listening to us today. What are the top 3 skills that will help them stand out from the crowd?
Yeah.
Especially when AI and humans are working together now. We heard about AI agents, where there'll be AI teams, and humans will be interacting with those AI teams, and even leaders will have to manage the ecosystem of AI agents and humans.
Yeah.
So what are the top 3 skills you believe would be game-changing?
Game-changing skills. I think about this a lot, and I actually have like a list of skills that we base our curriculum off of, and in terms of, and there are about 7 to 8 skills that I think are very important. So I've thought about what the top one would be, top 2, top 3, and I haven't reached a very clear conclusion. But here's what I think as of this moment, right? Because I keep flipping on it sometimes. One, adaptability. So I think some of us might have heard this in the current context as growth mindset, but it's a bit more. Take it a step further, because you want to have the ability to adapt to different tools and technologies that exist out there, but also to different and changing environments. Because someone who can flip fast in a fast changing startup, technology company, law firm, whatever it is that they choose to do, are more likely to survive whatever changes come their way, right? So I think becoming adaptable and exposing kids to different kinds of challenges is very important.
Okay.
Being an interdisciplinarian.
Yeah.
So I actually think that the people who will really stand out will be the ones who have some combination of different disciplines. So they won't be just great mathematicians, they might be great mathematicians and artists. So for young people, I think cultivating that from a young age, which is often, ignored. I grew up with Indian parents, and sometimes these things are ignored. So I think it's important to cultivate the importance of the two, because then multiple studies have shown that as humans, we take from multiple disciplines and create something even more exceptional, especially when we have complementary disciplines and skill sets. So that's the second one. And the third one I would say is leading through influence. And this can take the form of great public speaking skills. We all know and hate AI generated content.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's very important to have a voice. And I think leading through influence also ties into the ability to connect with others, because then you can have people in your network who've got your back and who can help you as you make your way through life.
When you discussed about adaptability, it reminded me of Charles Darwin. And his message, it's been something which he said years back, but it's still so relevant, right? If you don't adapt, you die.
Exactly.
And that is so true in the era of AI, and when everything is changing so rapidly, adaptability is a core skill.
I love that. I'm going to use that Charles Darwin. I love that, because Darwin it was so influential, and I think that's such a fundamental truth of humanity.
True, yeah,
right?
it is indeed. And in this era of AI, it is the core skill which we all should have. So thank you so much for mentioning it. As we close out this episode, I have a question to you. Is there a message you want to leave to this world, and probably to my baby boys who might see it after a few years? What would be your message?
I would say go in with a sense of curiosity about where life can take you, because what we know for sure right now is that the world is changing at an exponential rate, and the future might look very different to what you could imagine it could look like, and very different to what our ancestors or our parents could even imagine that it would look like. So be open to that change and be prepared for it, right? Feel curious about it. If you're curious about it, you're going to go a long way, just like becoming a super user of AI. So
that's an incredible message for all of our listeners and for my boys as well. I would like to know what's something you had to unlearn to completely change the way you live, learn, and lead.
Something I really had to let go of or unlearn was procrastination as a concept. So I think now I would say since I really got in the flow of the business, I absolutely just started to have a bias for action, right? Which I obviously always had to some extent, which is what led me to take that leap. But it wasn't as potent in my everyday life. So I used to sit around and daydream and think that that's, feeding my creative juices, which a lot of people say about procrastination. But at this stage in life, in the early stage of running and executing on the startup, there's no room for that.
Yeah.
And I think you need to have a really strong bias for action. And anyone who tells budding entrepreneurs otherwise are wrong, I think.
Okay.
Because I think it's really important to just go right?
Go and do it. So how did you beat it?
How did I beat it? I hired the right people on my team to join me on the journey. And then because they had such a strong bias for action, it inspired me to have an even stronger bias for action. So I kind of knew that it was something that I really needed to hire for. And I like to keep A players in the team from the get-go. That's very important. So, yeah.
That's brilliant, because you are saying that you have surrounded yourself with people who kind of are complementary skill sets, who are having kind of complementary skill sets, right? And that is what keeps you going.
Exactly.
And that's a brilliant way to put it, because procrastination is something everybody struggles to just, how do I beat it? How do I beat it? You have this Pomodoro technique and all of this techniques which they talk about, but I never thought about this.
But that's exactly, because I think especially as an entrepreneur and as a founder of a company, you can get stuck in planning and vision.
True.
Because you naturally tend to be a visionary, right? That's a personality type that a lot of entrepreneurs have.
Yes.
And you can get stuck in that phase for quite a long time. Like, oh, I want to do this. I've got a lot of ideas, a lot of plans, a lot of creative juices are flowing. And sometimes you need people who are not like that, but who are really just in doing on a daily basis. They're like operational powerhouses. So I literally hired a couple of people or brought them on as business partners, and they now, one of them is my COO. She's incredible. She used to be a huge project manager at VMware, actually, running in great detail incredible projects there, right? So these are the kind of people that I think it really helped create that culture in the company. And now I have an even stronger bias for action. So we only hire based on that. Yeah.
Interesting, because you're telling me that it's important as an entrepreneur to surround yourself with people who not only believe in your vision, but also believe in action.
Exactly. That's the perfect way to put it.
Yeah, and also are kind of risk averse to some extent.
100%. You need that. You need people who are going to ask, but how is this going to affect our bottom line today? How is this affecting your margin? And it might trigger you a little bit, especially as the founders could get triggered in this scenario. Like myself and my co-founder sometimes feel that, but we remind ourselves that that's a green flag, because if there's someone in the team who's challenging the way that we're approaching things, especially from that angle of have you thought about the details, then that's a really good thing, because it forces us to think about it. So you want people who are risk averse, 100%.
Thank you so much for mentioning it, because as entrepreneurs, it is important that we have a team which support us and also challenges. And as a leader, it's important to understand that sometimes the people who challenges is required in a team, because it also elevates us, right?
Exactly.
And it kind of catapults us, because we probably don't challenge our own ideas, but if somebody else challenges us and diverts our thinking into the areas which requires a thought process, that is what makes a difference as well.
Exactly.
So before we close out today's episode, I would like to do a segment which I've introduced recently, which is called the Rapid Fire.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if I'm ready. Let's do it.
No pressure. It's simple, because that's your core. I'm going to ask you questions in your core areas.
Excellent.
So the first question is, AI is a disruptor, enabler, or mirror?
Disruptor.
Okay. Do you want to add on it?
It's a disruptor because I think all technologies are double-edged swords. So I try not to use words that are too optimistic or too pessimistic. And I think a disruptor can be either good or bad.
That's brilliant. Okay. Your legacy in one sentence.
Education reform. 2 words.
It's 2 words. But that's the need of the time, right? Education reform. I love it. Yeah. So the last one. Your leadership mantra in 3 words.
Stay extremely calm.
Oh, amazing. And I think it links to your stoicism.
Yep, exactly.
And that's what probably Aiden taught you as an entrepreneur as well.
As a person, entrepreneur, all in all,
I love it. So thank you so much, Tannya. As we wind up today's episode, it's a pleasure to have you here today. And it's incredible what you do in the education space.
Thank you.
I would love to be in any of your workshops with my baby boys when they are a little bit more older. And I believe that co-creating education with teachers, students, and parents is the future.
Thank you so much, Sajna. It's been so fun talking to you, and such an honor to be on your podcast.
Thank you, Tannya. What struck me most in this conversation with Tannya wasn't just her ideas on AI or education, though those were brilliant. It was the why behind them. A teacher changed how she saw herself when she was 15, and now she is spending her life making sure others get the same chance. She didn't build Aiden because it was a cool startup idea. She built it because staying silent started to feel like betrayal. And that's what makes her story so powerful. It's not about technology, it's about truth. And the choice to follow it, no matter the cost. If there is one takeaway from today's conversation, it is this. The life that is calling you will cost you the life you're living. But if you're brave enough to answer, it might just give you everything.